Okay, so our a value is 3 because it's the number in front of the x squared. Our b value is 4 because it's the number with the x. And our c value is 3 because it's the number by itself. Any questions over that? Okay, then we plug it into our quadratic formula, which is x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We kind of got off there a little bit. Okay. And you're taking your SRQ, just so you know what I'm saying. Okay. Okay, so now we just plug it in. So instead of negative b, we're plugging in 4 into a negative b, which makes that negative 4. Then we have plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times my a value, which is 3, times my c value, which is 3. And it's all over 2 times 3. And this is x equals. Okay, so that gives me x equals, we're just going to simplify now, negative 4 plus or minus the square root. 4 squared is 16. Okay, remember I said this is the part that we're going to struggle with. We need to make sure we're checking this. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Negative 12 times 3 is negative 36.
I gotta take that.
No. You want to double check those signs, because that's where a lot of us are going to get a wrong answer, because we've made it positive when it should be negative, or we kept it negative when it should have been positive. Okay, so that's why I'm highlighting all those. That's where we're going wrong here. Everything else is pretty easy. Okay, then 2 times 3 is 6. We're going to keep going. We're going to get x equals negative 4 plus or minus negative 16 minus 36 is a negative 30. Not a negative 30, negative 20. All over 6. Okay, what should this be telling me? Imaginary. I have a negative number inside that radical, so it's an imaginary solution. So from there, I'm going to get x equals negative 4 plus, it needs the I, because this is imaginary. No negative number times itself will give me a negative answer, because a negative times a negative is a positive. So we have an I in front of it to make sure everyone knows that it's imaginary. And then you just have a 20 inside the radical, and it's all over 6. And we have negative 4 minus, we still have an I here, radical 20 all over 6. Any questions over that? Okay, try the next one in your pairs. Help each other out. Label A, B, C, all that good stuff. Seeing the quadratic formula as you're writing it down. That's good. It should be x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 40 all over 6. Okay, you could simplify this further, but we're gonna leave it like this. We're not gonna make you guys simplify it. We're just gonna let you leave it like that. Yes. Okay. Any questions over that? Okay, going to the next one. Quadratic equations can have real or complex solutions. You can determine the type and number of solutions by finding the discriminant. The discriminant is the b squared minus 4ac. Just the numbers in front. Yes. Okay, the discriminant is just the part that's inside the radical. So you don't have to memorize anything else. It's the part that's inside your radical. And if it's inside the radical, that can determine if you have a negative number inside there, then it makes it an imaginary, right? Or complex. If there's not a negative in there, then it's a real number. Okay, and then the only thing we have to learn that's different is if it's 0. So if I get, let's see, 4, oh, it's gonna give me an issue. If my discriminant is 0, then I'll get 1 real root. Because I'm gonna have -4 plus 0 and then -4 minus 0. And that's the same thing, right? -4 plus 0 would be -4, and -4 minus 0 is still -4. So I'd only get 1 real solution. So, yeah. Giving me some problems right now. There we go. So 1 real root, which also means 1 x-intercept. Okay. If there's 1 x-intercept, then my graph is going to have the vertex on the x-axis. So it's going to look something like this. The vertex will be on the x-axis. It could also be facing down with the vertex on the x-axis. Something like this. The key is just that the graph is going to have the vertex on the x-axis. Okay, if my b squared inside that radical, I've got the b squared minus 4ac. If it's less than 0, what's a number that's less than 0? -1, -5, okay? So then it would be, like our equation would be 4 plus or minus the square root of -5 all over something. Okay. So what's that negative inside the radical going to mean? Imaginary, or in this case, it's called complex because there's a real and imaginary part. So you're going to have 2 complex / imaginary solutions. Okay, what does that mean for my x-intercepts? If my x-intercepts are imaginary, what does that mean? They what? They don't exist. Okay, I don't have actual x-intercepts. So my graph is going to look something like this. It'll have the vertex above the x-axis and face up. Okay, or it could have the vertex facing down. Vertex below the x-axis and face down. So there's 0 x-intercepts. Any questions over that? Okay, now if the b squared minus 4ac inside that radical is a number greater than 0, what numbers are greater than 0? Positive numbers, right? Positive numbers. So if I have like 4 plus or minus the square root of positive 5, what would that tell me about my solutions? Are they real or complex? Real. 2 real roots, which would mean I also have 2 x-intercepts. And so it looks something like this. Or I could face down. Any questions over that? We're all good? Okay. So now we're going to evaluate the discriminant. We're going to figure out if these quadratics are going to have 1 real root, 2 complex roots, or 2 real roots. So you just worry about the discriminant inside that radical, b squared minus 4ac. We have our b value of 6, so that's 6 squared minus 4 times my a value, which is 1, times our c value, which is 10. That's going to give me 36 minus 40, which gives me negative 4. So is that real or complex? Complex. 2 complex. Zero x-intercepts. So this will never cross the x-axis if I were to graph it. Any questions over that? Okay, can you guys do the next 2 on your own or in your pairs? Okay, what did we get? For E, we got 1. So is the square root of 0? Square root of 1? So then how many roots? 2 real ones, right? So that means it crosses the x-axis twice. 2 x-intercepts. The goal is here that you can picture what the graph's going to look like. Okay, I know my vertex is going to, in this case, I know it's going to face up because this is positive, has a y-intercept at positive 6. Okay, and it's going to cross the x-axis twice. Yes?
Have you noticed like 2 real roots and like 2 x-intercepts? Like, how many
If you do the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and since this is a positive 1, you go back up here. It is greater than 0. That 1 is greater than 0. So it tells me it's 2 real roots. Okay. Okay, this one became the square root of 0, right? When you did the b squared minus 4ac, because you got 36 minus 36. And so that goes back up here. Since the b squared minus 4ac equals 0, you have one real root, one x-intercept. Okay, so again, you're going to picture the graph. It's going to face up because this is a positive x squared value. The a value is positive. Okay. Okay, so I got 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 16. Okay, 8 squared is 64. 4 times 16 is 64. 64 minus 64 is 0. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Now we're going to find where f of x equals h of x. Okay, so now I want them equal to each other, so I'm just going to set them equal to each other. Okay, f of x is this right here, so I have x squared plus x minus 3, and it equals the h of x, which is negative 2x minus 5. Now this is a quadratic function because it has an x squared. That means to solve it, I need to set it equal to 0. 1, set equal to 0. That's the first thing I need to do. So that means I need to get rid of the negative 2x and rid of the negative 5. So I'm going to add 2x to both sides. The 2x and the x are like terms, so I'm going to put them underneath each other like that. Then I'm going to add the 5 to both sides. The negative 3 and 5 are like terms because there's no variables, so you're going to add the 5. Notes out? Okay. Okay, so that's going to give me the x squared. 1, this is like a 1 in front. 1 plus 2 is 3 x's. Negative 3 plus 5 is 2. And now it equals 0. Any questions on how I got that? Everyone's with me? I'm going to move this up here. Okay, it's now a quadratic equation, so I can solve it through one of my many ways of solving. I'm going to use the quadratic formula just to have us have practice on it. Okay, so our next step is to solve. You can use any way you would like to. I'm going to use the quadratic formula. So we get to sing again. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, Nick, you need to get a piece of paper and just copy it down, separate sheet of paper. Or I should have labeled my A, B, and C. Okay. Kevin, what's the A value here? 1. From right there. Then we need the B value. Lori, what's the B value? And then we need the C value. Class, what's the C value?
2.
Good. Oopsie. Any questions over that? Now plug it in. So we plug the 3 into a negative b, it gives me negative 3. Plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times 2 all over 2 times my A value of 1. Okay, we're gonna keep going. Now we're just gonna simplify. I'm gonna get -3 plus or minus the square root. 3 squared is 9. Okay, make sure you're watching your signs here. -4 times 1 is -4 times 2 is 8. -8. Check the sign again. Should it be negative or positive? It should be negative still. And this is all over 2. Okay, keep going. X equals -3 plus or minus the square root. 9 minus 8 is 1, all over 2. Do I know the square root of 1? Yep, we're going to keep going. So we're going to get -3 plus 1 over 2. And -3, the square root of 1 is 1 again, all over 2. And I separate it so I can add and subtract the 1. Yes.
For number 3 on the test, we just need a blank, step 3.
-3 plus 1 is -2 over 2. And -3 and -1 is -4 over 2. Keep going. We're going to get x equals -1 or -2 divided by 2 is -1. And -4 divided by 2 is -2. Any questions over that? Okay. Okay, try the next ones in your pairs. Try H. So we should, when we plug it in, get +4 plus or minus the square root of -4 squared minus 4 times 2 times -10 all over 2 times 2. That's going to give me x equals 4 plus or minus the square root. 16 plus a negative times a negative is going to give me that, and that'll be 80. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 10 is 80, and a negative times a negative makes that positive. Check that sign. And this one. Take that extra time, and it's all over 4. Then I get x equals 4 plus or minus the square root. 16 plus 80 is 96, all over 4. Do I know the square root of 96? Nope. Okay. So I just separate it. X equals 4 plus the square root of 96 over 4. And 4 minus the square root of 96 all over 4. Any questions over that? Yep.
I have a question.
Yep.
Normally when I plug it in with my calculator,
It's going to give you a decimal, right?
like,
Oh, no?
when I do the part that's in the radical, like,
Mhm.
this for this one, for some reason it's giving me a different answer.
Yes, because you're not putting the -4 in parentheses like I did.
Okay.
What they're doing is squaring 4 and then multiplying it by -1 if you don't put in parentheses. So you've got to put in parentheses. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. On the back. Use the given function to find the missing values. So I'm kind of giving you the difference between f of a number and f of x equals a number. So when you have f of x equals 0, that means x equals 0. Find f of x. So plug in 0 for x and simplify. That's what that means. So you're going to get f of 0 equals, we're plugging in for the x here, so it's going to be 0 squared plus the 12, plugging in 0 for x, times 0 plus 36. Any questions over that? Okay, then just do the math. 0 squared is 0, plus 12 times 0 is 12, plus 30. What's 12 times 0? Thank you. 0, then plus 36. So f of 0 is 36. Okay, this is the same thing, only what are we plugging in for x? X equals -2 this time. So we're going to plug in, instead of 0, like we did here, we're going to plug in -2 for x. Using that same equation, I'm going to have f of -2 equals, make sure you put the -2 in parentheses, -2, then squared, plus 12 times -2 plus 36. Then we're going to do that math. -2 squared is 4, plus 12 times -2 is -24, plus 36. Then it doesn't matter which order you add and subtract this. I'm going to combine these two next. 4 minus 24 is -20, plus 36. And then I'm going to get f of -2 equals 16. Any questions over that? We're good. Okay, in C it says f of x equals 0. So now we're not given an x value, we're given the f of x value. So plug in 0 for f of x. And then find x. So this is when we have to use the quadratic formula. So x equals the x squared plus 12x plus 36. X squared plus 12x plus 36. Do you want to try and factor this, or do you want to try to use the quadratic formula? Let's try and factor this. Now, they won't always factor, but when they do, it's much easier. So it's going to be x times x. What multiplies to 36? 6 times 6. So that'd be 6x. This is 6x. If I add them, do I get 12? Yes. So then I have x plus 6 equals 0, and x plus 6 equals 0. Separate your factors and set them equal to 0. Everything was positive up here because everything was positive in my original equation. So I don't have to worry about negatives. So I'm going to subtract 6. I'm going to get x equals -6. Subtract 6. X equals -6. It's the same exact answer, right? What does that tell me about my graph if I only have one solution? one x-intercept. So if I go back up here, one x-intercept means the vertex is on the x-axis, right? So that's kind of what my graph's gonna look like. It would face up because my a value was positive. So I know it's not reflecting. But it would have the vertex at -6 and 0 for y. Okay, now they have f of x equals 4. So now we're going to plug in, 4 for my f of x. Okay, so it's going to be 4 now equals my x squared plus 12x plus 36. So now that's not set equal to 0. We have to set it equal to 0. In order to do that, I'm going to subtract that 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. X squared plus 12x. 36 minus 4 is 32. Do you want to try and factor it, or do you want to try and do the quadratic formula? Factor. Let's try and factor it. I don't know if this is going to factor, though. It's not going to? That's going to be a bummer. So we could do 8 and 4. Doesn't 8 and 4 work? Okay. So this is going to give me 8x. This is going to give me 4x. If I add them, do I get 12?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So it does factor. Everything's positive. So I'm going to get x plus 4 equals 0. And then x plus 8 equals 0. So I'm going to get x equals -4. Subtract the 8 here. And get x equals -8. So I'm going to get x equals -4 and -8. Any questions over that? Okay, so your homework is the rest of 4-3, finally. Okay? Any questions over that? Let me come in.